Hello, friend. Welcome to another episode of Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, a live series provided by Lawyers Design School. I'm your host, Hannele Korhonen, and I'm the founder of Lawyers Design School. Today, we have a treat for you. I'm here with not one, but two great guests, Henna Tolvanen and Nina Toivonen. They are the brilliant creatures behind the Legal Design podcast, and of course, brilliant creatures in general, too. Our theme of today is to talk about the podcast, of course, and get a sneak peek behind the scenes, and then share a few insights about the present state of legal design and also look at the future. Hello, Henna and Nina. Welcome.
Hi, Hannele, and hi, everybody.
Great to be here. Thank you for having us. It's very exciting.
Great to have you. Yes. I typically ask in the beginning, where are you joining? Because it's so great to hear where people are located. I know that Nina is not in Finland, at least.
I'm not. It's 8:00 in the morning here. I'm in Atlanta, US, where I currently live. So hello from a bit cloudy and steamy Georgia. Yes.
And Henna.
Sorry. I'm here in Helsinki, I live here and I'm at my office. I recently joined Fondia, the legal service provider. So I'm here in a meeting room called Powder. Hence the lovely
That's
color.
So cute. Yeah. So we are actually just few blocks few blocks in between us.
Actually, when I saw your setup, Hannele, I wanted to send you a message saying that maybe I could join you in your setup because it looks so professional.
That's true. Maybe we can do that sometime.
That would be nice.
But hey, can we start by, I don't know, you giving us a brief presentation about you? What would you like to share about yourself and your background?
Yeah.
Do you want Henna go first?
Oh, okay. So my name is Henna Tolvanen. I'm a legal operations lawyer working at Fondia. I've been working in legal tech and legal design for, I think it's been over a decade now. I started in legal publishing and then I moved to KPMG Finland where the operational side came along. So now I'm actually fulfilling my dream working at Fondia, trying to help my clients to get their legal departments to function better. I love law. Me and Nina were doing podcast outside the office just because we want to change things for better. But I also love cold swimming. And that's something that people who do cold swimming always have to mention.
Yeah.
And anyone who's following you on social media cannot avoid seeing,
Exactly.
which is lovely.
Yes. You get those shivers when you watch her swimming, in the middle of the winter in the sea in Helsinki. So my name is Nina Toivonen, and I've also done a few things in my life before I got into legal design. But legal design is currently pretty much everything I do work-wise or what I'm interested about. Most of my time goes into my doctoral thesis that I'm currently working on for the University of Helsinki. It's about how legal design or design can complement the drafting of new laws, especially in the context of insolvency regulations. And before that, I worked as a legal designer for the city of Helsinki, my longtime employee. And recently, I've also joined a startup team called Justice 4.0 in Finland that develops AI-based tools to tackle access to justice issues in Finland. And yes, I also co-host a podcast with Henna. So all things legal design on my plate at the moment.
That's so inspiring to hear people's stories, like how they ended up being where they are today, and you both have very, very versatile backgrounds. But so let's talk about the podcast maybe first. How long have you been hosting the Legal Design podcast now?
That's a great question. I think we're in season 6 at the moment. Oh no, we have done 4. No, 5.
Yeah, we started in the beginning of 2021, right?
Yeah,
In the midst of
exactly.
the
Yes.
pandemic. So a few years, but we have cut it into seasons,
Yeah.
like the spring and the fall season. So I guess we're going into number 6 next.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been quite a few years actually. And I think when we started, it was kind of, I think we were pretty nervous because we were wondering like if anyone's gonna listen to Finnish chicks with their guests, or is it gonna be just our mothers and some other family members who are forced
Who still have
to.
no idea what we're talking about.
Exactly. But I think now we can do it with a smile
Yeah.
because I still remember the first episode. We were so nervous. I think the only thing me and Nina say is, "Oh, this is very interesting." But then already on the second episode, we were, at least to me, we're sounding more relaxed and more like ourselves.
Yeah. But that's how it is, I guess, always. When you start with something new, you first feel awkward and you need to put
Exactly.
boundaries in yourself. And then it gets, you get used to it. It becomes a routine.
Yeah. And I think we were both really excited about legal design. Me and Nina, well, we met in 2019 when we were organizing, well, producing the Legal Design Summit back then. And then, well, everything was so great at Summit, and it was so lovely to meet everybody and hear about new thoughts and ideas. And then the pandemic hit, and no one went anywhere. But we still, well, we still had the need to actually keep the discussions going. We wanted to learn more ourselves. And then my brother Heikki and his friend Panu they started the Tietosuojapodi, I think that was called back then. And I thought like, yes, if they can do it, we can do it. And then like in one night, me and Nina were chatting or watching, and I'm like, hey, how do you feel if we started a podcast together? And yes, luckily Nina said yes.
Yes, I could not resist the idea. And I think it was just a perfect hobby or thing to have when you can't leave home, you can't really see anyone. But now it felt like, oh, we have the whole world kind of,
Yeah.
you know, um, in front of us. We can access almost anyone via the podcast, and people have been very open and welcoming to the idea. And it has been great to do it because I think every time we ask someone to join us, they've been very eager to do so. So,
And I think we should thank Lina Kraviets, who had the nerves to be our first
yeah,
guest. I mean, we didn't have any clue how to do podcasting. Of course, we had been trying things with ourselves, but then oh, it was brilliant that Lina had the courage to join us.
yeah.
And
It
how
was a
wonderful it is that Lina is actually now listening. I don't know if you can see her comment, but she's the first one to comment.
That's perfect. Hi, Lina.
hi. Mm.
Yeah, but she was the first. And did you already have a very is it still your slogan, this legal talk out of the box? Because was that the kind of the concept that you were going after?
Yeah, like we kind of want to foster this like broad understanding of legal design, also design and law inside the boxes of legal design. Like just explore what different kind of ideas and insights and philosophies and practices can be combined
Yeah.
thinking. Some may find it problematic because if it's everything, basically it means it's nothing. But maybe we come up, into some sort of kind of summary or solution at the end when we have done the podcast, or on the way, like we can say, okay, we did this, we discussed about this, it has something related to legal design, but that's not what it is. So but we want to keep this like exploratory mindset.
Yes, and we want to stay open-minded and open to new ideas because I think it's safe to say at this point that we have learned that many other sciences can actually help lawyers to solve problems. So
Yeah,
maybe we should actually try to discover more.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's been so fascinating to listen to the episodes and also follow the development of the podcast and the courage that you have had to like invite all kinds of all kinds of guests from various, I don't know, across the discipline, but also outside the discipline, and really get these different views to support.
Yeah, and I think, well, since we started this because we wanted to learn more, and more you learn, then the more you kind of want to find out more and see what actually fits the pattern, what is legal design, who can help us, where we should learn more, who to talk to, and maybe even like what's not part of the legal design scene and what shouldn't be part of the legal design scene.
Yeah, you learn to see it more accurately in some ways, like learn to define
Yeah,
what
and
it might.
also to find the
Yeah.
limits. I think that's very interesting too. Let's talk some more about those learnings after having these incredible conversations. Really, kind of diving deep into the world of legal design. What are your learnings? Any big surprises or key takeaways from these conversations?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think we've both learned a lot of things, just not about legal design, but how to manage things and make a podcast and
Yeah.
these technical issues. But I think talking about surprises is like from a personal point of view that like we learn most when we dig deeper into something unknown. Like, for example, we've been talking about the philosophy of harmony and behavioral and cognitive sciences, etc., like fields we have no like previous knowledge of before. And it's always very awkward to, for example, design an outline for those episodes because you're not sure, should I ask this? Is this a proper question? Will they think I've have no idea what I'm talking about, and they will just
Yeah.
laugh at us. But that's when you really are having or fostering this kind of beginner's mindset that, and we've been talking to each other, okay, like we accept we don't know anything about this field of philosophy. We will sound like two kids asking like very basic questions, but that's exactly the point. We're here learning, and always after those episodes when we have been talking about something totally new, we've been so focused, like we forget that we're making a podcast. We're just
Yeah.
so into in that discussion and forget what we were supposed to ask. And sometimes I'm just sitting there thinking quietly and like, oh, that was amazing, like. And it's a good thing that we can edit those episodes. So
Yes,
They are not
exactly,
live.
because we make tons of mistakes with
yeah.
with the questions and with language and with this and that. But as Nina said, it's always fun to see like sorry what other sciences we can bring into this. And I think one of the first episodes we did with someone outside the legal design bubble was Shin Koseki from with the urban planning. And I remember us talking like we don't know anything about urban planning, like, and Googling what is it all about, and seeing Shane's CV, seeing that he's done some work with the UN and organizations like that. And then you're kind of like wondering, is it okay to ask stupid questions? Like, is he gonna think we're stupid or we're something? But then again, I think this is a great opportunity for us to ask stupid questions, but show example to other people that it's okay to say that I don't know anything about this. It's okay to ask questions. So it's kind of like mind freeing.
And when you mentioned Shen, for example, it's always also very inspiring to notice how people can grasp or get the idea of legal design, even though they may hear it for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Don Norman, I think when we interviewed him, he hadn't really been into this legal design bubble before. And I think he also may have had a different understanding what we're we're doing.
Yeah.
But he totally got the idea, even though he was not talking with the terms that we are used to, inside this legal design field. But in his own words, he totally got the idea, and he has this very behavioral approach to design in general. So it was also interesting to kind of see how these different professionals they have that idea, they already have the same mindset, and
Yeah.
they get totally what legal design is about. They just have their own perspective to it, and it's really interesting to hear about those perspectives.
Yeah, and how
But-
cool it is that you get to talk to Don Norman, and he hasn't
Oh,
really
That
been
was a
in
lot.
legal design, and you get to kind of introduce it.
it was such a great moment when we learned that he's willing to join us, and he said the nicest things and was a true gentleman complimenting us. It was such a beautiful
Hmm.
episode and recording, and it was such a great discussion.
Also, and I could mention another thing, what we've learned is that there is, like, in general, so much happening in the designs world or in the design discipline that could be considered as legal design. And it is very developed. And it's something that we as legal designers should maybe take a more closer look into. That's like policy design, or like, for example, when we did this episode with the Design Against Crime Research Center, like they have decades of experience in using design in that field of criminal justice. And it was very humbling to realize that, oh, they really know what they're talking about. That's like deep level legal design in a way. It's not necessarily how we have learned to understand what legal design is about or what it could be about, but it just showed that there is like vast potential that design has in general in the field of law, and there are many people who have done it for ages, and that's something we should be very interested about.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
one of the main reasons why we want to do the podcast, because we want to showcase different people and show people concrete examples what can be done with the help of design in the field of law. Because I think we all know document designing and contract designing, but we want to help people to take things further and show examples. Well, you can fight crime, even you can fight crime with the help of design. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, truly transforming.
Yeah.
And I think that I've learned this as well, that it's almost like we would have these, like, there's legal design bubble, but there are many legal design bubbles who are somehow separate from each other, and we should all like burst the bubbles and start understanding what people are doing and what we can learn from each other, rather than just building our own bubble and our own collaboration inside those walls.
That's
Exactly. Because I think it's been fascinating for us to see that even though we like to think that legal design is something relatively new, but we have learned that there are people who have been doing this for decades, and we even see hundreds of years old examples how things have been done. And it's kind of comforting that instead of like, we're not making things up, and this is not something new, we're just looking things differently than maybe the mainstream of lawyers.
Exactly. What has been the feedback from the listeners? Do you get messages or feedback?
Well, we get some feedback, not as much as we would hope for, because it would be nice to hear from people, like, what do they actually think about the podcast? We have some true fans who actually give feedback, which is great. And then, of course, some of our friends and colleagues, they show us their love, but not that much feedback actually.
Yeah, not like our message boxes would be filled with comments. But
Yeah, we don't get love letters or hate letters that much. So if you have something to say, you can send us message.
but one thing, like form of commenting or having some visibility, is like people have been citing us in their articles, and we've heard that law teachers or teachers who are teaching innovative law or legal design have been using our podcast as a like learning material, and I think that's a very
Yeah,
great feedback for us, that okay, you can actually use this for something as a material for your own learning and research, which is great.
yeah, and I think it tells that information about legal design is really needed. So we're trying to do our part of
Yes.
spreading the word.
Yeah. And of course, you could maybe think that, okay, podcast, just using the audio is not necessarily the most efficient way to convey information about legal design. You think it's not visual. You can't see what we're talking about. You can't showcase. But we think, okay, this is just one form or one way to do it. Like when you go for a walk, you can't read a paper. You just you can't just listen, or when you're driving a car. So we're providing an alternative way to to get this information.
And it's also very
Exactly.
accessible because it's available in all the podcast apps, and it's very easy to find and listen to. So you don't need any
Yeah.
computer or any screen to do it.
And that's also
Exactly.
we do have a website, and we have had this idea for a long time that we need to develop our website a bit more to provide also like some visual content and something tangible people can, after the episode, go and take a look at. But it is very time consuming to do this podcast as a side hobby, so we're not there yet.
So if there are any sponsors listening,
that would be helpful.
Well, actually, we had a sponsor for
Yes,
the
great.
2 last seasons.
Mhm.
Precisely was kind enough to work with us. It was really cool to collaborate with them.
Yeah.
But it's
That's
still time consuming with all the code swimming and working and Nina's family life. So
Yeah.
it's hard to find time.
yeah, but it's super valuable work, and it's definitely one of my favorite podcasts. So thank you so much for doing that, and I hope you will continue with
Well, thank
new
you for the
seasons.
Thank you, Annela. Yeah.
And we will definitely continue. We've been concentrating on the website at the moment during the summer, and it'll take us some work during the fall, but we'll be back with new episodes in the springtime and even some new content otherwise.
Oh, perfect. Hey, let's shift gears a bit and talk about legal design in general, or about maybe the big picture of legal design. Now that you've had your ear to the ground, so to say, in the legal design space, how would you describe the current state of legal design at the moment?
Nina, do you want to go first?
Yes, I have this very, I don't know, for some it can be boring, this very scholarly academic point of view, because I'm so focused on reading a lot of papers at the moment. So that's why my head is full of at the moment. So my comments are from this more legal design research point of view. But I think it's like theory and practice, they go hand in hand. And even though legal design is a very practical approach to law, I think to be able to develop it, we need research, we need some sort of supportive theories and ideas of, so what is this thing we're working on with now? And that's also one of the big questions, I think, at the moment. because we see these papers coming out. We have handbooks and articles about legal design, but it's like this Schrodinger's cat. It exists at the same time and it doesn't exist, like legal design, what I'm talking about. That what are we researching? Because it does not have this like very clear identity yet. But recently I read finally Michael Doherty's article about legal design as an emergent new discipline, that it might have like some of those features that traditional disciplines have. Like they have their own research question, they have their own terminology, they have a methodology, and they have these like own institutions, like educational programs, the Legal Design Summit, this new legal design journal is coming up.
And our podcast.
And our podcast
Yes.
and live session. Definitely.
Yeah.
These kind of like very important signs or signals that it's like it's creating itself, like it's coming up, but it's kind of, and I think all the researchers and we who are being active in creating this legal design movement, we have a very like interesting position and role, because we get to make it at the same time. We get to define what it is and what it is not, and shape its future in a way. We are being very influential in that way. So it's also, I see it's gaining more momentum, like in that sense that more and more people are being interested about legal design as something that can be researched. But like I said, legal design is a very practical approach. You can't research anything that has not been done. So we not need more like empirical case studies and like accumulated knowledge about the practices of legal design, how it is done. Because I think like there are many ways to kind of view at new emergent disciplines. And I think it's philosopher Ilkka Niiniluoto who has kind of these different categorizations for new disciplines. And he has said, which was very interesting, that there is this like form of design sciences. I think he did not particularly mean like design as a science, but like sciences that are interested in how things are done. Like, for example, healthcare is one example of sciences like this. And I think legal design could kind of take a form of, naturally, a design science, but then it requires that we develop the practice first. Like it's like this practical know-how, like, okay, we have this document, or we have this legal process, or we have this law we need to draft, how it is done so that it's fit for purpose. And then we study that know-how, and that kind of becomes the content of this new science. So that's where I'm thinking at the moment that we should be
fascinating.
heading at.
Not boring at all, at least for me. Super fascinating.
Exactly.
What about you, Henna? What are your thoughts?
Well, I loved Nina's ideas and thoughts. That sounds really fascinating. But I would love to see more concrete examples on other legal design projects than document designing. I mean, it's important and it's easy for people to understand because they see the concrete results. But I would love to see some legal service designing or legal product designing. I mean, from my point of view, like instead of just redesigning contracts, we should redesign the whole contracting process. And I think, well, I believe that the end result, I mean, a contract would be better if the process of contracting would be better. So we should focus on the process and not the end result. And I'm not saying that contract design isn't important. It is. And for example, Stefania Passera is doing an amazing job. But I would love for us to focus more on the process side and figure out why we do things the way we do. Is there something we could do differently? Would it make law more understandable on general level? So I think it's time to move on from the contracting. It's only the tip of the iceberg, so we should actually dig deeper. And as Nina said, we would need more like material and research on the other designing processes as well. So I think it's important that we bring up the other ideas and other projects and move along from the contract designing.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we need more kind of use cases, but also we need more research on. So we need both ends of the spectrum.
In a way, I think they can happen at the same time. Like, for example, the work of Margaret Hagen is just incredible because she's doing it both at the same time. Her team, they're having amazing projects, and they're also they're reporting about them. They're telling openly about the cases, how they did it, what worked, what kind of challenges they had. And I would like to see, some Finnish case studies like that. And yeah, what Henna mentioned about seeing legal design more as a process instead of, just as that we just work on some tangible thing and that's it, made me think of in general, because every science has their own problem solving formula, or every science is about solving problems. So, and legal design also has its own approach to solving problems. So instead of seeing it as, it went very this instrumental way as a, document or product design, it's at its core, it has this problem solving approach. And that's also something I think we need more research about. I'm sure design research already maybe has the answers, what's the magic that happens during the design process, why people learn things when they're engaging in a design activity, and what's the transformative magical ingredient there that we say that gives this capability of making things better. So that's something I would like to dig deeper into.
And sometimes I feel like that within legal design, the academic and the practical sides are very divided. We don't collaborate as much. And I would love to see more of that. Bringing good theories into practice, or the academic side learning from the project, as Nina said.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And I think this could maybe design could provide new methods for also law schools.
Yeah.
Do research and have this connection to the work life. But that's something, especially I think, universities in Finland. Well, we have this more practical kind of work life oriented University of Applied Sciences in Finland. But maybe this could be something that more theoretical oriented universities could start applying into, and learn from this connection to the practical side.
Oh, I love this, and I feel that this is also kind of envisioning the future of legal design as well. What would you want to see in the future? More collaboration between the academic and the practical. And I must say that this contract design, document design, information design, it's kind of natural that it gets so much attention because it's so concrete, it's so tangible, it's so easy for lawyers to understand, and other people as well, that what's the point.
And it's a big part of lawyers' jobs.
Yes, yeah.
And also it has been so well researched, thanks to Elena Hapio, Stefania Passera, many others. It has very like relatively long history already. Like
Exactly.
Laurea started in the 1990s. She did not talk about legal design back then, but she already had the same like spirit and mindset and thinking behind there. So it's very natural that what we see now is these manifestations of that thinking in action. But maybe like it could be a good time to, broaden our perspective and see where else can it be used. And I can say that, of course, even though we have this like process mindset or problem solving mindset, in the end, the solution can be, of course, a document that is designed better. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's just the solution. We don't know in the beginning yet if that's the thing we need to do.
For sure. Do you see some positive signs on the horizon?
About that, like our broadening
about how we could broaden our discipline about legal design or approach.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind first is the work Mariana Salgado, who is going to be on stage next week on Legal Design Summit as well. The work she did in the Ministry of Interior in Finland. Like she was leading some service design projects or design projects. Well, I think that's not how they call them, but I see them as design as part of the of planning of the new immigration law, and like in hearing different stakeholders, she used these design approaches, and I got to see her how she's working and doing it, and that was very inspiring. And I think also that's also my research topic. So excuse me that I'm talking about it now, but that's also, I think, one very interesting field where design clearly would have things to offer, like legal drafting and planning of new laws, because it already has very actually similar kind of process to compare to the design process. It has these kind of similar phases, but just the techniques and methods that are being used there are not necessarily effective. Like, for example, in hearing stakeholders, people feel that, okay, we get this kind of letter from the ministry that now we have a chance to, give our feedback or comment about this new suggested law or whatever. But in the end, they may feel that our point of view was not really heard, or that we did not really have a chance to influence the outcome. And design can, of course, offer new tools for that and give people the experience that we really had we were heard, and maybe, to experience the whole process in a more open and accessible way. And then testing is also something like I think lacks in most of the legal drafting processes at the moment. Like, we're not prototyping for those ideas, like we're not testing before we implement a new policy or a new piece of regulation. And that's something that would be very interesting. I know it has happened. There are some cases that where governments have used prototyping in policy making, but it should be researched more, and I'm sure we would give some interesting insights.
Exactly. And I think well, we're seeing some governmental projects that are looking forward. They're trying, instead of like trying to solve problems that we faced, let's say 5 years ago, we're trying to figure out how to solve problems that we may face in 10 years. So looking forward, that's already really comforting. And that's a great idea of moving forward instead of just going backwards. Because I know that there's some planning with different family laws in Finland, and they're actually studying how things might be in 10 years, and should we actually do something with the legislation already instead of trying to correct things, every second year, when we actually figure out that we have different kinds of families than in the 1800s or something like that.
And I think it's super encouraging to think that since we have so much quality research on contract design, then the outcome is that we know a lot about contract design, and then people are starting to implement that. But once we get more research on these other fields, then it's possible and more accessible to people also to start implementing design in these other areas as well.
Yes.
And I think it might be more convincing for lawyers when there's more research, and it's easier to believe that, oh, this is a real science. It can have something to do with law, instead of just like, oh, design. All I can think of is Nokia mobile phones or Fiskars scissors. They don't have anything to do with law. But when we have research and we can show that it actually works and it has an effect and it makes things less complicated and more clear, then I think it'll be easier for lawyers to start implementing design thinking into their work.
Yes, that's a very good point. And I think especially for lawyers, it's because law as a science, like we go to these authoritative sources like law, case studies. We find our information from there, and we only trust like these certain authorities in what information you can use as a base of legal analysis. So I think it's also maybe has something to do with that when you mix law with something else, it needs to have some sort of like convincing authority there in the background telling it's okay, it's legal to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a legal background. It supports the well-being of the law. So it's okay to do this, which is very natural. And that's very good point for why we need legal design research.
For sure. For sure. And it will be super interesting to see how these different worlds meet, these academic and practical worlds meet each other next week in the Legal Design Summit. I think that there is
Definitely.
variety of presentations on both sides. But hey, let's circle back in the beginning, back to your stories, because I'm always curious to kind of learn and hear, because you both started out as lawyers, and then this design thinking, legal design, innovation, technology came to your reality. How has this experience been for you? Taking this new
Yes,
new way of
I can start. I actually
Yes.
had to pause for a second to think like how to put things into words, because I would be lying if I said that, oh, it's easy and everything went super smoothly and all the people understood my choices, the choices I made, because it's not. I think what well me and Nina, we always ask the same thing with our podcast guests. And I think most of our guests have said that they have felt out of place, like doing traditional law or even at law school. I remember when I was studying and started to work in one of the law offices, and I had to review a contract and I didn't understand the word. It was in Finnish, but I didn't understand the word. And of course, you start second guessing, like, am I stupid? Am I in the wrong career path? Like, how other people understand this? Or do they just fake it till they make it? But then it's not easy to say that there is something wrong with the law, because there's so many of us who think that it's working perfectly. And when you start saying things like that out loud, of course, you're the black swan or black sheep and the weirdo who wants to like fix something that isn't broken. So it hasn't been easy. But then like when I look back, there's always been some sort of red line with my career choices. And I've always end up working in situations where things are done differently, or they're done with technology, or we actually have to use design thinking to make things work. But it has taken a little while to get to this point. And there isn't a clear career path for legal operations lawyers or legal designers or legal tech experts. You kind of have to like figure things out on your own. And At the moment, I'm really happy with all the choices, and I'm actually really happy to be at Fondia. And I think our ideas actually match. And of course, I've always dreamed of working in attorneys or at law or in a fancy law offices. And here I am now. So it kind of tells that I've done something right. And hopefully my mom doesn't ask questions anymore. Like, oh, when are you going to be the real
What is it
lawyer?
that you do?
But now she understands, like after listening to one of our podcast episodes where I used her as an example of a person who doesn't understand the terms and conditions of insurance contracts. She's been calling her insurance company for 7 times, asking, like, can you explain? I don't get this. Why do you guys write things so complicated that normal people don't understand them? So I'm actually really proud.
Oh, good for her.
There should be more people like my mother calling insurance companies
demanding
and banks.
them to explain
Exactly,
it
to
more in more
explain
simple
in
terms.
plain language.
Yes. What about
Yeah.
Nina? Your
Yes.
experience?
Sometimes it feels like a hot mess. Like, what am I doing? Like, seriously, here I'm just, doing something I definitely did not expect or vision myself doing when I started in law school. But actually, when I applied to law school, I happened to also apply to. It was back then. I think it was called in English. It was called the University of Art and Design, Taideteollinen korkeakoulu, and I happened to get in to study industrial design. And back then, in 2006, was it 7? I thought that, okay, it's impossible to combine design into law, so I better just choose law. It's more practical, makes you get more money, and of course, my
Like, who
parents.
It's a real job.
Yes, where okay, you can always paint and make pots, during your free time. And of course, there was a big conflict inside me, but then I listened to the voice of sense and chose law school. And of course, I regretted it many times during all the exams. And then in 2016, when the first Legal Design Summit was held, I had already graduated from law school and had some been for years in the work life as a lawyer, and then it just it was like a sign from the universe, like. And now you're telling
I was
me
here 10 years ago. Now you are telling me this is a thing.
So Nina, you're even more pioneer than we thought you are.
Yeah.
That's
well,
brilliant.
I don't know if it's something to brag about, because back then I thought it's something, you can't do it. And I felt like, oh, I just lost my chances. But I think if I had chosen differently, chosen the design path, maybe I would have, skipped law on the way and would never have discovered how design can be used in law. Because now, I'm not saying that I know everything about law. I definitely do not. But I think I've always had this kind of idea in me that the idea of justice is very much related to being understood from, by other people. Like when we experience injustice, we feel we are not being seen or heard as we would like to be or as we intended to be. And I have this idea in my mind since someday when I publish something, I'm going to cite this song. I don't know, is it from Nina Simone or Aretha Franklin, who sings that I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. Because I think that's what we're trying to do somehow in legal design. We're the people who have good intentions, who want to do good things, who want to do it the right way. We need to support them. We need to give them the tools to act accordingly and be part of. So that's like my ideal of justice. And I think so, and that's why I'm very convinced that legal design is the thing that I need to do. And of course, when I'm sometimes, feeling that I haven't done anything for a week and it's just not, I need to go back to, to my old, lawyering job and just skip this, then, then I get this feeling again that, actually I don't want to support the old system, because it's not going to the way that I think it should be going. So maybe I just stick to this legal design path then, and let's see what comes up next.
Oh, that's
And
so
I think
beautiful. Yeah.
many of us actually might have gone to law school with the idea that I'm going to save the world, whether it's environmental law or criminal law or something else. And I think legal design, where we try to make law better for real humans, is actually my trying to save the world part. And that's how I know I made the right choice.
Oh, that's a perfect ending for this beautiful discussion. Before we wrap up, where can people find you and find more about you and find information about the podcast, if there is someone listening who hasn't found the podcast yet?
Well, we're on social media, of course, and we have the website that's under construction, but it's legaldesignpodcast.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And then I think me and Nina are both also on the same social media platforms.
Yeah.
And we're, of course, looking to meet new people. So feel free to contact us and send us messages and give feedback about the podcast.
Yes. Also, like, how to develop it. That's what we would appreciate as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have any ideas, what would you love to hear? Or if there's someone you think that we should definitely do an episode with, let us know.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit this live series. It was so much fun to have you on the other side of the microphone and to be interviewed and not doing the interview. So thank you. It's been so good talk, and thank you everybody for watching or listening to this. And we'll see each other soon. Thank you. And bye-bye.
Thanks, Hannele.
Thank you, Hannele.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.